Hi. So throughout the lecture, I was having trouble precising exactly what you meant by negativity, and you draw this relationship between negativity and repetition. Can you then come across the conclusion that there is not a line between repetition or negativity and something that is not repetitious, something that occurs a singular or perhaps for the first time as not being repeated but for being seen as an initial, like regardless of its absoluteness. Just
I see your
experiencing
question, yes. No,
first time.
again, it may sound very paradoxical, but here I follow Gilles Deleuze, although he would have violently disagreed with me if I say Deleuze at his most Hegelian, where he, in his maybe best book, I think, his two best books are, I think, Logic of Sense and Difference and Repetition. This is his point there, that it's only through repetition. It's not only that the new can also emerge as a repetition, but that it's only through pure repetition that something new can emerge. And no, it's a very radical thesis. You know why? Because you said, what about something new for the first time? I claim, as a good Hegelian, there is no first time. There is no one. One is not at the beginning, which is why in my book on Hegel, there are many surprises here now. It's like I found a wonderful, crucial quote. I will tell you exactly where, from Hegel's lectures on history of philosophy, where Hegel speaks about this Neo-Platonic mysticism, Plotinus. And Hegel then, okay, his usual attack on why Plotinus doesn't get dialectical development, but then Hegel says it's absolutely crucial what is absolutely crucial to see is that one does not divide into two. Dialectical progress is not we have one which splits into two and then the higher synthesis. Why? Because for Hegel, one, to assert the one, is the most radical division you can imagine. One means one against one as, it's not only that in a deconstructive mode one is never really one, it's supplemented, blah, blah, blah. No, the very form of oneness is a radical division. Division between what? If you listen to me, that example, a rose is a rose, you saw. The division is the division in this case. You posit rose as one only through tautology. But you have then a gap which cannot ever be repaired because between all the multitude of predicates and the form of the one and so on and so on. So to go back to your point, new is, now you will say, but let's say something new really happens. Like, let me be the most naive. Let's say a big asteroid approaches Earth and finishes off all life on Earth. In a formal sense, it will be new. But in strict Hegelian sense, and I stick to Hegel here, it wouldn't be anything new.
But in reference to your previous comment, there was one smart person you referenced, and he said that self-consciousness is an object.
Yeah.
And the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I conceptualize self-consciousness is always created out of relation of another object. The individual subjective being put against another object and realizing either the relationship between the two, the perceiver and the object, or himself just as another or as something, as another object. So in experiencing the initial self-consciousness or the creation of self-consciousness, is that not a subjectively new creation?
I see what you mean, but again, one has to be here very precise. The first thing to do is, again, I'm sorry if I will give you, again, a kind of a twisted, convoluted answer, is I agree with you that this self-consciousness and it's crucial, but the first thing to note, and if I got correctly the undertone of your question, I agree with you here, is to absolutely separate this topic from the standard liberal Hegelian topic of recognition. As Fred Jameson nicely remarked, usually we had either a conservative proto-fascist Hegel, organic totality against liberalist mechanical multitude, or the leftist Hegel. Now in the last decades, more and more a new liberal Hegel is emerging. And if you look for kind of a sign of recognition, it's the word precisely recognition. You know, Hegel, whose goal is this idea in a free society, I recognize you, you recognize me, and so on and so on. What is lost here is what? Let me return to your example, encountering something new. Yes, I agree with you. In what precise sense? And who was this? I forgot who noticed this. I'm sorry, I'm confused. That if you look closely at how Hegel describes the so-called Herrschaft-Knechtschaft, this struggle to death, blah, blah, you will see that it's not simply I encounter another self-consciousness and then first we fight, then blah, blah, we recognize each other or whatever, but that within Hegelian space, to encounter another subject is something ontologically impossible and an ultimate scandal. Why? Because for Hegel, and he is right, each of us as subject, Selbstbewusstsein, is absolute. By definition, I as a subject am the totality of subject and object. And it's something absolutely monstrous, dramatic, because again, it's not a question of psychological arrogance. By formal definition, I am the subject, the center of my world. So how can then, within the world, another jerk appear to say, haha, I'm also a subject? And that in this sense, you can say that this is something radically new. But again, I would like to make my point here. Why? Precisely because it's repetition of me. This is the most radically new thing is not to discover an alien or whatever, but to say, fuck it, another self-consciousness. It cannot be. So you know what I mean? The basic point here, and I cannot go now into Lacanian waters, I hope he was the smart guy you mentioned, no? Is that because of this radical scandal of another self-consciousness, there is intersubjectivity shouldn't be our ultimate horizon. There is never this symmetry of me and other subject in the space of mutual recognition. You know, no wonder that in psychoanalysis, it's very important, I claim, what is the material dispositive of psychoanalytic treatment? It's not me eye to eye with the analyst, I see you, you see me. No, it's I look into the void, the guy is behind me. So it's for me, psychoanalyst is not another subject, it's an object. It has to be behind me. It's basically even, in a way, a silent object. In other words, the idea is, and this is why I agree with you, that the encounter of the other is something new, but again, it is not intersubjectivity. Sorry, I didn't answer the question.
Thank you. I think, you know what, I think you would love Levinas.
Khrushchev is too beautiful for you.
This is Aufhebung time. So I want to thank you for dialectically doing what you just did, and for closing the season, and for really bringing, until the last few remarks, outstanding reflections to us, and also we're looking forward to reading every one of those 1,000 printed pages.
Now, you know, Kant, towards the end, to solve the problem of French Revolution, because it was unthinkable, this diabolical evil, Kant tried to show that it wasn't really that the idea of evil in the pure form of good, that is to say, killing them, that it's impossible. It's so evil that it cannot happen. So he tried to prove how no, French revolutionaries, they were really afraid of the king's revenge. You know, it was pathological form. So Kant says, no, there is only radical evil, like our radical propensity towards evil, but pure diabolical evil, evil done for the sake of it, is not possible. Well, looking at you, maybe Kant was wrong.
Okay, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.